it didn't really turn out very well, and that's on me, not the designer. Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Mathilde, I'm a French knitter, and today is podcast episode 17 or 18, I never know. 18. If you're new here, hi, welcome, thank you for joining us. This is a regular podcast episode where I'm going to share with you some finished objects, some WIP, including one that's making a comeback, maybe, and I don't have any acquisitions this time. If you're not new here, thank you so much for joining again. If you're not subscribed already, you can click on the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future content. But let's just get straight into it. Maybe let's talk about what I'm wearing, which is my actual finished object of this week's podcast. I'm saying that because in the last podcast, this one was kind of finished, but it wasn't blocked. So I'm going to share with you all of the specs about this one, the cost, the positives that I have post-blocking, and all of that good stuff. So this is the Charlie Pullover by Morecaknit. This is a pattern that I've talked a lot about the construction of it in previous podcasts. So if you're curious about it, I highly recommend that you go check them out. But it's a polo color saddles shoulders construction, which is very interesting. The beginning of it takes quite a bit of time, quite a bit of focus, but then it's just stockinetting around, which we love. And it does feature some very long ribbing, so it's 11 centimeters of ribbing on the sleeves and on the body. For this project I used a yarn that wasn't really recommended in the pattern. It's meant to be knit in fingering and mohair, but I used a sport weight and mohair, so this is all that I have left. For the sport weight, it was Ulysse by Natura in the colorway Amarante, which I love. It's 100% wool, and I paired it with Knitting 4 Leaf soft silk mohair in the colorway Bordeaux, which I think I'm going to use again in this color. I mean, I'm using the mohair regularly, but I love this color. The Ulysse is one of my favorite yarns. If you're not subscribed, you may have missed my last video, which was a ranking all of the yarns I've used so far, so I'll link it up above. And in this one I'm talking about this Ulysse with heart in my eyes because I really love it, and the combination of this is incredible. It is one of the softest garments I've ever made. Not that, you know, some of my garments are pretty soft, but this combination is stunning. Obviously, if you're sensitive to mohair, this might not be the best, but the Ulysse plus mohair is really, really stunning. I really love it, so I'll definitely use that combination again. And I've got, I think I weighed this, and I've got, I think maybe 10 grams of this and 15 of this, something like that. Not a whole lot left, but I did want to make sure I kind of used all of it. But then when I was knitting on the body, I was kind of scared I was going to run out, and you don't really want to run out when you're doing the Italian bind off, so made sure I had enough for that. Let's talk about the specs of the knit. This took me 69 days to knit. Bear in mind that I was knitting on other things at the same time, and then, you know, the yoke took me most of that time, and then in about 7 days I knitted both sleeves and kind of the whole body, just because I was on holiday, and if I had been working it would have taken me longer, but it took me 69 days. The cost of the project, the pattern price was 9.5 euros for me, and then the price of the yarn, for what I said, was 121.30 euros. So the total cost for this project was 130 euros 80 cents, which I feel like, and I'll put on the screen the amount in US dollars, just because I know I have quite a few American viewers. It's a pretty pricey project, and I know I could have done actually the size down for this project, because I'll talk about the positives afterwards, but yeah, I could have gone down a size and maybe make the project a little bit less pricey, just buying a bit less yarn. but because I was using sport weight instead of fingering, I wanted to make sure I had enough. And obviously for the size I actually made, that was cutting it pretty close. I blocked it and I ended up with 30 centimeters of positive ease when the pattern recommends 15 to 20 centimeters. Oh no, I think 10 to 15 centimeter positive ease. So quite a bit more. My gauge was bigger than recommended. I think I had 11 by 11 centimeters. I did go up in needle size. I used a 5mm for, you know, the stockinette, and then I think I used 4.5 for the ribbing and maybe 4 for the double knitting. So I'll put b-rolls of me wearing it so you can see the positive ease and how that looks. I love how it looks, love how it feels, but I think I would have also liked a more fitted, not fitted, but a bit less positive ease. But that being said, I am planning on knitting the Elizabeth blouse later this year by PetiteKnit, which has a similar construction. It's not a saddle shoulder, but it is a polo collar, and then it's a raglan, and it's got even less positive ease intended. I think it's got 5 to 10 centimeters, something like that. So I'll definitely knit this one to size, and that way I have two similar looking designs but that have different vibes, you know, because of the positive ease. So I'm pretty happy with it. It is very comfy, it's very soft, so I've been actually wearing it a lot. I've finished, like, it was dry 2 weeks ago and I've worn it at least 6 times already, and that does mean that I have worn it twice at work where people could see that I had worn it 2 days before, but I just loved it so much I had to do that. So I feel like you could understand. I've talked in length about any modifications that I made, which I didn't make a lot of, and my struggle with knitting the stockinette body versus the amount of ribbing that you have and everything in previous podcasts. So go check that out if you're interested, or leave me a comment down below. I answer every comment, so if you have any questions you can leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. But maybe let's move on to the other finished objects. In the last podcast I had an acquisition, and also I had started that project, which was a test knit that I did for Toksknits. She's another YouTuber, podcaster and content creator, and she's just started creating some patterns. So she has one beanie that's out, then there's this project that I'm going to share that's out, I think today actually, so you can go check it out. I will link it down below. And then she has 2 sweaters that are in testing as well. She's quite a fairly new designer, and she posted a reel on Instagram, or photos, I don't remember actually, I think it was photos of a brioche hood, and I love brioche. I love my Sophie hood, so I was like, I mean, you know, I could always do with another hood, and I really wanted to make one with a different yarn combination than the one I had chosen for my Sophie hood, because I found that one isn't that warm, and so I wanted to use a mohair to make sure that, or like to see the difference in warmth. And basically I applied to test knit and I was chosen. The yarn was sponsored for the test knit, so I used Onling. I used number 3, which is their DK weight yarn. It is 100% merino wool and it's lovely to work with, and I paired it with their number 10, which is their silk mohair. So it's 70% super kid mohair and 30% silk. This is in the colorway 0469 and the number 3 is in the colorway 117. This one is light navy and this one is a very dark blue, something like that. They pair very well together. I love the feeling of the mohair, and I know that I'm going to buy a sweater quantity to pair with the yarn that I have in stash to make a sweater. I've got this much left and a little bit of a skein, and same thing for the number 3. I do have 1 full skein left and a little bit of another one, and this is my finished hood. It didn't really turn out very well, and that's on me, not the designer. I made a huge mistake with this project and I'm really bummed about it. and I have finished the hood technically, but I think at one point I'll go back to it and fix it. But I needed to put it in timeout for the time being. So this is a brioche hood. I'm sorry the lighting is going to blur out a little bit, I think, because of the dark yarn. And I have very different ends. Yeah. Basically, the construction of this is quite interesting. It's quite different from the Sophie hood, which I've made earlier this year. You knit... Oh, it's going to be a little bit tricky to show. I did share how it looked before, but you do knit like a kind of rectangle, and then you pick up stitches on the side of that rectangle. You put those stitches back on the needles, and then you pick up here again, and then you knit kind of in a half circle until you reach this point, and then you put those stitches on hold, and then you knit this side of the scarf, and then you pick up back here again and you knit this side of the scarf. So up until this point, and after knitting the first half of the scarf, everything was fine. And then I picked up those stitches again that I had put on hold, and I forgot to do the first row of decreases right when I picked that up. And so my first decrease is several rows down here, I think. And then basically that meant I've got one less decrease in the second scarf, and everything is kind of shifted. And so one side is larger than the other, which you can't really tell at the beginning, but at the bottom you can really see, especially at the very, very bottom here. So, and I think actually, I'm not sure if this side is the right side, because in the pattern pictures at the end, which I didn't have when I started that part of the scarf, I had only seen the top half of the scarf. I hadn't seen the whole thing, and I think it looks more like this. It has this amount of stitches than this. So I'm not sure what happened, because I'm fairly certain that I, read the pattern, and at the end it said you're supposed to have this amount of stitches on the needles before doing the last bit. And I'm fairly certain that I read that because, first of all, I follow instructions, but also it's a test knit, so I wanted to make sure it was the right amount of stitches and everything. But I feel like that's wrong, and it looks a bit weird being so tiny. So I don't know which side is the right side, which side is the wrong side, meaning which one is the correct one and which one isn't. So I'm gonna have to go back, look at the pattern again, and see which side I will probably frog and redo. Or my other option is, if this one is the right side, then I might actually undo my bind off, which was a regular bind off, and add this, which is kind of missing, even though then one side of the scarf is going to be longer than the other. But I feel like that might be, I don't know. The thing is, when I wear it, it's not, you can't really see it because I kind of tie that up, and you can't really see that it's not the same. So that's why I didn't change anything. And I mentioned my mistake to the designer, and I said, I'm sorry about that, but because it was quite a short deadline, I didn't really have time to go back and fix it. Anyways, that's my whole thing with this. And then she added towards the end of the test knit window an option to add an I-cord edge around the whole hood, which I didn't do again because it was quite a short deadline, and I finished this just before the day I was supposed to. And also because I think I'm gonna go back and fix it, I don't think it makes sense to do the I-cord edge now. Also, I think it looks fine without an I-cord edge, because you do make a very tiny I-cord edge as you go, except that you don't have it for this bit, which is when you cast on. But I think it still looks pretty good without it. I do think adding it might help it holding on your head. So I'll explain this in a moment, but I do find that this one doesn't really stay up on my head. It kind of falls down a little bit. I haven't actually worn it outside or anything, but I do feel like if there's wind, or even if I move too much, which obviously if I'm walking then I'm moving, it does kind of fall off of my head. And I haven't worn it yet because it's actually getting a bit too warm now to wear a hood, so I can't let you know how it feels, but I think it feels definitely a little bit heftier or like warmer than my Sophie hood, which is good. I love the fabric and the brioche stitch. I think that just looks, maybe I will show you the wrong side. I think it looks so pretty. I love the navy blue. I'm really glad that I chose that, although she did make one in a red, almost orange red, which I did think about getting that color for the unling yarn. And when I saw hers, I was like, that looks really good. But I still really like my choice. And I'm really happy with the decreases, which I think it was my first time doing decreases in brioche stitch, but I think it looks pretty good. I think I managed to learn how to make that. Project cost for this was obviously 0 because I was gifted the pattern for the test knit and the yarn was sponsored for the test knit, so it did not cost me anything. Maybe I'll put on the screen how much it would have cost me if I had bought the yarn and the pattern since it's out today. That way you can see. And I will link the pattern below. I actually really recommend this pattern if you want to learn brioche. It's not very complicated, but I know some people are very scared of brioche, so I feel like a small project like this, which took me, I think this one took me 11 days to make, so it's quite a fast knit. Obviously it was a test knit, so I was knitting on this a bit furiously, but still, you know, will take you less time than a sweater, especially since the scarf itself isn't very long. I think the pattern says it's 65 centimeters long, so you know it's not a very big hefty scarf, and so that makes it a little bit faster. And she does plan, Toksknit, the designer, plans to have videos on brioche stitch and also on how to fix brioche stitch if you've made a mistake and everything. So, and the instructions for the decreases were very clear. I didn't even look at any videos for that. So I think it's a really good first brioche project, maybe not for like a very first knitting project. I do recommend that you've knitted at least 1 or 2 projects before, but if you've never knitted brioche before but you've knitted other things, I think this is a really great project to do. And it's always good to have a hood in your wardrobe, I think, because it does help keeping warm in the winter. So I'll include some b-rolls and everything. I've probably already done that of me wearing it so that you can see. Even if the hood falls a little bit, I think I would still wear it next winter. And even if it's just like as a scarf, and then, you know, whenever it's a little bit cold, you can pull the hood up, and if it falls a little bit, I think that's fine. But I did want to mention that it maybe doesn't stay on my head very easily, and I think maybe the I-cord edge might help with that, but I can't guarantee it because I haven't done it yet. So this might come back in future podcasts when I've fixed it, but it's a bit too warm now, it's spring, and I'm very annoyed at myself for my mistakes, so I'm putting this in timeout, and I think you can understand. Now let's talk about what I've got in this project bag, which is the Zipper Sweater Light Man by PetiteKnit. I hope you'll forgive me because this one is looking just a bit rough, because I have put this on try it on shipping so that my partner could try it on very easily, and I know I'm gonna need to do that again, so I haven't put it back really on the needles, but I've actually got quite a lot more progress than I thought I would. I said in the last video that I wouldn't share this with you again if I didn't make significant progress, and I have. But maybe let's talk about the yarn first. I am doing the Zipper Sweater Light Man, or the Zipper Sweater Light Man, but I'm not using the recommended yarn at all. I'm a very tight knitter, I've mentioned this before, so I'm not using the recommended yarn. I'm using Gilliatt, which is a worsted weight instead of a DK weight because of my tight gauge and everything, but I'm hitching gauge on this with the yarn and going up to a 5mm needle. So this is Gilliatt by Natura in the colorway Merlot, which is a stunning deep wine red color with a little bit of marling in it. I love this yarn. I'm definitely going to use it again for my own project. We'll see in which color, but this is 100% wool, and these are 100 grams for 250 meters. And this is the progress I've made. We've got one sleeve done, and you know, a little bit more progress on the body. So this is it's going to be hard to show. This is the stitch marker that I put last time to show you my progress. So I've knitted like, I would say at least 8 centimeters on the body. And then once I finished my skein on the body, I picked up for the sleeve, or like I picked my stitches back up since this is a raglan. And then I knitted the whole sleeve. A couple of things before we talk about that actually. And apologies for all of the cat hair on this. I forgot to remove it again. I'll do it for the next podcast so you can see it in its full glory. Anyways, I wanted to take the time to thank you guys so much for your comments on the last podcast. I asked you for help on figuring out which color to pick out for the zipper for this one, and you guys were so nice, so lovely. You also remind me to block my sweater before I install the zipper, which was really smart. I did not think about that, so I'm very grateful for you. I will definitely be doing that before installing the zipper. And some of you guys even sent me messages on Instagram with links to some burgundy zippers, which was really lovely. They're not, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find one that is the correct width, the correct length, and also the look that I wanted. I could find ones that were plastic, and someone said you can very easily remove the, I don't know what it's called, but the bit that you hold to pull the zipper up and down, you can change that. But I wanted a zip as well that was metal, and I couldn't really find one that was the right size and everything. So I have bought some zippers, multiple. Bought 2 zippers for this project, and I've also bought some other stuff, which will be acquisitions hopefully in the next podcast, and I will figure out which one I'll use. I've bought a black one and a brown one to see which one looks okay, but most of you guys said that you're not really gonna see the side of the zipper, so it doesn't really matter which color it is. So we'll see which one works best. I think I'm definitely gonna knit another zipper like this, another zipper sweater like this for someone else in the future, maybe for my dad. He's already expressed some interest, so I think when he sees this finished object he'll want one. So that's why I bought 2, and I thought depending on what color my dad wants, hopefully I can use that second zipper. So I have knitted a sleeve. I followed the instructions for the sleeve for the size I'm making. I'm making size large, if I didn't mention, for my partner, and it said to knit X amount of centimeters whilst also decreasing X amount of times every X amount of rounds. I don't want to give away the pattern, which I did, but I didn't reach the amount of centimeters meant at the end of all of those rounds of decreases. And so I don't know if I was supposed to keep knitting stockinette without decreasing to reach the amount of centimeters, because it wasn't really clear. And I made it try it on my partner, and it wasn't too far off from being reaching his wrist without the, or like it was maybe it was about here, and then I was supposed to do 8 centimeters of ribbing. Basically, I had already started a little bit of the ribbing. I had done 2 rounds, and I told my partner, okay, do you mind if I just knit the ribbing a little bit longer than what it's meant to be? And he said, no, that's fine. So I knitted, I think, 12 centimeters of ribbing instead of 8. So it's definitely longer. I think it looks fine, and it's gonna be up maybe here for him. We'll see post blocking how that looks, and that way you can easily fold it, you know, and it will stay like this if it's a bit too long. Whereas if I was to add more stockinette, I wasn't sure how much ribbing I could do afterwards to make sure it was the good length. So we'll see if this is the right decision. I did get the feeling that my partner wanted a little bit more length in the sleeve because he wants this to be quite oversized, and he wants, you know, to be able to see kind of some creases in the sleeve. And I don't know that with this length of sleeve he's gonna get that. But I think I'm gonna block it, you know, when I get the zipper in the mail, I'm gonna block this, and I'm gonna see if blocking has lengthened this a little bit to the point where he's happy with it, or if I can tell that he's lying to me and that he's not really happy with it, I'll go back, undo the ribbing, add some stockinette, and then do the ribbing again. I think because I'm not gonna get the zipper right away, I think maybe in a week or so, I'm gonna start the second sleeve though, but I won't finish it because I don't want to have to do, you know, fix the sleeves twice. So we'll see about that. And one thing I did want to mention about the Gilliatt, first of all, for the first sleeve, it only took me less than a full skein. So a full skein is 100 grams, and I've got this much left. So I'll put on the screen how much that is, but it did take me maybe 85 grams to knit the sleeve, which is pretty good because it means I've got 3 full balls left, I think, and this bit for one sleeve and the rest of the body. So I think I've got plenty of yarn, which I'm really happy about, because I was a little bit worried that my math was off since I'm not using the recommended yarn and everything. And one other thing which I do find a little bit annoying, I mean, it's fine, it happens, but I do have some knots in the balls. Not more than one, I think. Obviously maybe it's because they're 100 grams, but for this one I knitted maybe 2-3 rows on the sleeve, or rounds on the sleeve, before I had a knot, so I had to cut my yarn and join it again. And it's a little bit frustrating that it's not like in the middle of the skein where this will be fine, because that would have happened if I had used a 50 gram skein, but it's really at the beginning or at the end of the skein of a ball, and that's a little bit frustrating. But you know, it's fine. I just wanted to mention it in case you guys do find that frustrating as well. So I'll put the stitch marker that I've got down on the body. I think for this one, the plan for the next podcast is to at least start the second sleeve and hopefully install the zipper if the ones I've bought work. I'm not entirely sure that they will, but hopefully they do. And so I can block it, and hopefully it will be dry quickly. Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't even start the second sleeve. We'll see. I might block this now, and that way when the zipper is here I can just start doing the facing and then add it, and then I can do the sleeve. That might be smarter, because that way also I don't have a full ball attached whilst I'm adding the zipper. So yeah, that's my progress on the zipper sweater Lightman. I'm really happy with the progress. I'm actually hoping to be done with this fairly soon, not like next week, but before the end of April would be good. I apologize, by the way, if the lighting changes a little bit. Like 1 minute it's sunny and the next it's looking like there's going to be a storm, so not sure what's up with that, and I think it does change the lighting a little bit, but hopefully that's okay. Let me just put my camera on charger and then we can carry on. Next up, we have a WIP that I didn't show in the last podcast because I hadn't made any progress on it, but I did this past 2 weeks. So I picked back up my Maine Summer Coast socks, or my Maine Coast Summer socks, can't remember, by Summerly Designs. This is a sock pattern that features a cable design and a heel flap and gusset. I am using Filcolana Arwetta, which is becoming my favorite sock yarn. in the colorway Chinese Red, which is 218, and this is 80% superwash merino wool and 20% nylon. I've got 2 skeins of this, and I'm still on the first one, obviously, for the first sock. This is how much I've got, and I am on the foot of my sock. So I have finished the heel flap and gusset, which I think might be too big actually. So I usually would go up in needle size for socks, but this one was meant to be knit on, I think, 3mm needles, and I didn't want a gapey sock. I think because of the cable, you're meant, to reach gauge, you're meant to go up in needle size. I wanted to use the needle size that I use regularly, which is 2.5mm. That's what I did. I didn't gauge swatch, so we'll see how that ends up. But I am doing a size up in the pattern, so I would usually do, I think, a size large in socks, but I'm doing size extra large. And for that one, the heel flap and gusset is quite long, and I think maybe I should have just got, I didn't think about it, I just followed the patterns, but I think maybe just increases for the stitches is fine, but maybe for the heel flap and gusset I should have just done this bit a little bit shorter, as I usually would. But we'll see. I haven't tried this on because I've put these on very small circulars, so it's not very easy to try on. So I'm not sure how it fits. I think it does fit, but I'm not sure how it fits, like how it feels and everything. So we'll see. I'm hoping to be done with the first sock in the next podcast, and that way I can figure out if I can do the second one or if I need to rip back everything or something. We'll see. I might put this on hold after I finish the first sock before I do the second one, because I'm planning on knitting a pair of socks alongside Morgan from Morgan Unraveled, and so maybe this will be left aside a little bit, but I am very excited about them, so I'm hopefully not going to put them off for too long, but I'm hoping to finish at least the first one. And yeah, I love the design of the cables, and it carries down the top half of the foot, but not like the bottom is stockinette. Obviously, knitting cables on very tiny needles. I am using a cable needle, which is fairly small, but yeah, it does mean when I have a cable row, I'm very slow. But now that it's just on the top half, it's fine, and I'm really enjoying the process, and I'm really enjoying it. But that's it for this one. Let's move on to my next red project. There's a lot of red in my videos lately, like the burgundy red and then the red. I'm loving it. I hope you are too. Okay, the next red project is my Agnete Cardigan by PetiteKnit. This is a project for which I'm using Knitting for Olive. I am using Knitting for Olive Mohair and Merino in the colorway Red Currant. The Merino is 100% merino wool, and it is 250 meters for 50 grams, and the Mohair is 25 grams, 25 grams for 220 something meters, 225 meters, and it is 70% RMS certified mohair and 30% cruelty free silk. I love this color, love this combo. I will just mention the mohair does have a white strand running in it, so if you don't like this, don't get this color for the Knitting for Olive. It's not my favorite, but I don't really mind it, it's fine. But you can really see the white strand in the project. So I do have some progress from last time, because last time I had just barely cast on and done the neck edge. This is, oh, my balls keep falling off, but if I say that, that's a bit weird, isn't it? This is an all-over brioche cardigan, drop shoulder, and you do need the button band as you go. So you start by doing the button band, which is what I did, and then you pick up stitches below and you knit the back panel. How good does that look? Oh, I'm so happy. It is very slow growing, I will just say, but I think it looks so pretty. So you do knit increases for a while, and now I finished the increases and I'm just knitting back and forth, which I think is right around here where I've stopped the decreases, and it looks so good. I'm so happy with it. Yeah, as I said, it's pretty slow going. I don't mind it, but I do want to have a chat about this actually. I've been watching a lot of, I watch a lot of knitting podcasters and TikToks and everything, and I've been seeing a lot of knitters, talk about how fast they're knitting something. And especially this time this year, I don't know why, maybe it's because I'm knitting it, but I'm seeing a lot of people knitting this project and they knit so fast, and my brain can't compute, and I'm honestly feeling a little bit, I don't know, behind, and like I'm really slow, and like I really want this project, I want to wear it. And so there's this part of me, and I wanted to share this because I'm sure you guys sometimes feel the same, and I just want to, take a moment to remind you and remind myself that, first of all, it's not a race. This is our hobbies and we want to take our time and enjoy it. And obviously some people like to knit really fast and, move on to the next project. And that's fine if that's what they like. And sometimes I like that, but I think it's important to remind myself that, yes, it does take time, but it's going to be something that is going to be in my wardrobe forever and that I'm going to love. And I want to take the time to enjoy the process. And I'm enjoying the process. I mean, the increases were not tricky, very easy increases, but I did get some point where I was halfway down the row and I was like, oh, I forgot to do the increase, so I had to go back and do it, but that's fine. That's just my brain that wasn't really focused. But anyways, I'm enjoying the process. It's quite slow going, but also I did this in 2 weeks and I've knitted on various projects whilst doing this, and it's nice to take your time. So yeah, maybe, if you're finding yourself comparing yourself to other people's way of knitting, first of all, you don't actually know how much knitting time they have. So yeah, don't compare yourselves to others. Take a moment to breathe and kind of remind yourself what you're knitting, why you're knitting it. Does it bring you joy? If it does, that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter when it's done. So I hope that helps, because I've been feeling a little bit iffy about all of this lately, and I thought it's important to share. This is the progress I've got on my Agnete. I will just say briefly before we move on, you can probably tell that I do have this bit of the double knitting that's not connected. I picked up the right amount of stitches, and I think maybe just this double knitting was a bit long, so when I'm going to pick that up whenever I do start the front panels, I'm going to remove maybe 2 rows of the double knitting so I don't have that gap, and then I'm going to continue with the pattern. So hopefully that will fix that. I did think about picking up stitches again, but I think because I have the possibility to go back to this before doing the front panels, hopefully I can remove those couple of rounds before I actually continue with the pattern. So yeah, for the next podcast, I'm hoping to at least finish the back panel and start one front panel. Maybe I can even finish one front panel and start the other one. We'll see. As I said, it's pretty slow going. Also, I haven't reached that point yet, but I will say the pattern is very wordy. So if you don't like very long instructions, written instructions, I would err on the side of caution with this one, because I think because of the button band as you go, once you reach the body, instead of just being like 5 sentences, it's like a whole page and a half, I think, of instructions, because you do have to knit the button band as you go and therefore do the, buttonholes and everything. I haven't reached that point, but I'm already kind of dreading it. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it won't be too frustrating. So that's the Agnete Cardigan by PetiteKnit. Lastly, I did pick back up a project that I had put aside for a few months This is my Porcelain Sweater by Lene Holme Semse. I am knitting it in Zennes Garn PetiteKnit in the colorway white. I think it's 1002. Everything will be on the screen and down below, which I'm holding with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in the colorway cream. So this, and I can check the name. Yeah, it's 202 for the PetiteKnit. And I am using for the contrast color a hand-dyed yarn by Olivia and Oliver Fibers, which is her organic merino in the colorway foliage, and I'm holding it with Soft Silk Mohair by Knitting for Olive in the colorway Dusty Olive. So apologies, it's looking a bit rough, but yeah, that's my combo. I mentioned in previous podcasts that I was finding the fabric too see-through and I wasn't really in love with it, and I was debating frogging it or keep going, and I decided to frog it and to knit it on smaller needles, which I did have my swatch on smaller needles. I did frog my swatch because I thought I was gonna redo one, but then I reread my notes on the pattern, and I had already knit a swatch in smaller needles that was 20, and I had the number of stitches exactly for that, and I had the correct amount of stitches for the colorwork and for the stockinette, even though I wasn't using the same needle size. So that's what I wanted. So I decided to cast on with those needle sizes. I think it's 4.5mm for the stockinette. And when I say stockinette, I mean like the part without the colorwork. And for the colorwork, it's 5.5mm, so it's still quite big compared to the pattern, but I was using 5mm and 6mm before, so that was way too see-through. I don't have much to show. This is how much I've done. I can show you a little bit of the fabric. It's still see-through, but it's a little bit better. So I, made some math, because obviously going down in needle sizes, I wasn't reaching gauge. I was getting 24 stitches per 10 centimeters instead of 21, I think, stitches. I calculated, and based on my math, I was supposed to cast on the extra large size, which I think is the biggest size, which is what I did. But this is massive. This is like really big. I want 20 to 25 centimeters of positives for this one, but I think this is way too much. I've held it up against my back with the help of my partner, and you can't really see, but it is a drop shoulder design, but this is excessive. So I'm gonna go back to the drawing board, even though I'm kind of sad that I just really want to knit this sweater, but I just don't know how to make my gauge work and which size to make to get the finished result that I want, which is really frustrating. I'm kind of getting fed up with this. I don't think it's the fault of the pattern, even though there's a little bit, obviously I've mentioned this before and I won't go too deep into it, but she does have a different positive is intended in the pattern, in the calculations of the pattern and everything, compared to what she wears in the sample pictures. She has more positive is, and that's the look that I want. And so I have to do my own calculations, which is a little bit annoying, especially because I'm really bad at math. But yeah, I might, because this is still a little bit see-through, I might swatch again with needle, like the needle size recommended. I'll see the gauge that I get and I'll cast on again, and maybe I won't, I just basically ended at the increases for the back panel, and then I was supposed to do a couple of rows of stockinette before doing the colorwork. I think I'm gonna do the same thing again with, after my swatch, or I might just keep that needle size that I'm using and cast on a size large. I haven't actually checked my gauge on this. Maybe my gauge here is a little bit different than my gauge when I was knitting in the round or with the colorwork. But yeah, this is going to be I feel like this sweater is just going to be a fail because of how it's going. But I'm gonna keep working on this and I'll keep you guys updated. I also decided I'm gonna be filming a vlog for this one because I feel like I've got, so many struggles to go through, even just at the beginning, that hopefully it might help some people. We'll see how that goes in the future. But I've got, in the next 2 weeks, I want to do what I've told you about the other projects, and I also have a fix-it project that I've got to do for Make It Work March, and I think that one is going to take a bit of my time this week, so I don't know if I'm going to get back to the porcelain over the next 2 weeks. Hopefully I can, because I really want to work on this, but if I can't, that's fine. We'll see. Anyways, that's all for me today. I hope I've not forgotten anything, because I feel like I always do, and I've been chatting for a while and I feel like I'm forgetting something, but hopefully I haven't. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Again, thank you so much for your help on the zipper sweater. That was really helpful, and hopefully I can update you on that in the next podcast. And yeah, I think that's it for me this week. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!